Well, we're finally here. We've went through 90 prior Pokemon and have literally waited days for this. So, at long last, we bring an end to this gargantuan countdown. Thank you so much for sticking with me along the way and waiting so patiently for this. But now, we're ready to rock. We're at the top 10, motherfuckers. As you would expect, these final 10 entries mean a lot to me as a Pokemon fan. And I don't want anyone else to be left out. Since I'm expressing my own favorites, why don't you do the same thing? I would really love to hear what some of your favorites are. So feel free to comment or make a video response. Doesn't that sound familiar? So sit back, grab a snack or something, and enjoy the rest of the video. But enough small talk. Let's finish this, damn it! Landing at number 10, we have the extremely adorable transport Pokemon, Lapras. Oh, come on. If you're a Pokemon fan, you have got to at least respect her. After all, Lapras is seen more of a form of transportation than anything else. From its actions, it would appear that Lapras is basically the camel of the sea, only a lot cuter. Lapras' main use to humans is to carry our lazy asses across the ocean for long periods of time. Poor Lapras. I feel kind of bad for her. Well, thankfully, Ash was very kind towards his Lapras. With a show of hands, who watching this liked Ash's Lapras from the anime? Don't bother, because I know for a fact that just about every Pokemon fan did. Obviously, I loved Ash's Lapras. Whether I felt bad for her or not, she always made me smile for some unexplainable reason. I was actually very sad when Ash had to let her go. But, to quote Fox, I guess that's that. Alright, let's move on to Lapras' numerous other traits. I enjoy just about every aspect about Lapras. Her appearance, her concept, her stats, and her behavior as well. Where to begin? Well, let's start with stats. Similar to many water types, Lapras is very, very well balanced. Her base stat total is 535, which is equivalent to most of the Sinnoh evolutions. That's definitely a good sign right there. Most of her stats are well-rounded, as you would expect, with her HP and special defense being the highest. Even though her greatest stat is HP, Lapras is far from useless. Her move pool is also far from shallow, being able to learn moves from Psychic and even Electric types. But most notably, Lapras has some killer egg moves. Through breeding, Lapras can learn a slew of good attacks, such as Ancient Power, Future Sight, Tickle, Dragon Dance, Horn Drill, and even Fissure. Wow, I love that moveset. Lapras should also get credited for being one of Veronica Taylor's favorite Pokemon, also known as Ash's original voice actress. That is respect. But to me, the greatest aspect about Lapras is her concept. Lapras is based upon the fabled Loch Ness Monster of Scotland, also known as Nessie. Both Nessie and Lapras are said to resemble the marine reptile known as the Plesiosaurs, an ancient Sauropterygian dinosaur from the early Jurassic period. Easily one of my favorite Pokemon concepts to date. Although the Plesiosaur is known for its predaceous hunting activity, Lapras is definitely not a ferocious predator. Just another gentle giant, I suppose. I don't blame Lorelei for having Lapras as her strongest Pokemon, as she's definitely one of the more memorable Pokemon from Generation 1. Without a doubt, my favorite ice type. At number 9, we have the only ghost type introduced in Generation 1, the menacing, haunting representative of the infamous Lavender Town, Gengar. As you know, I've already talked about Gengar when I made my top 10 ghosts in video games list, but it looks like I have to explain some more. Gengar is, in my opinion, the definitive ghost Pokemon. Some may argue against this and say that others, like Cofagrigus, are, but I obviously see otherwise. Before I get into the ghostly aspects of Gengar, let's go over his stats. Gengar's base stat total is 500, similar to that of Ampharos. Gengar makes for a very strong special sweeper, with his speed reaching a maximum of 350, making him the fastest ghost type, along with Frostlass. Of course, Gengar's main focus and power is his special attack, which can reach a maximum of 394, the highest of all poison types. Gengar also has a unique typing. For 16 years, there have only been 3 ghost poison types, the Gengar line. I honestly would like to see another ghost poison type, but at the same time, I don't. After all, typing is what Gengar has over many other Pokemon. Well, on to concept. The main basis in which Gengar derives from is the mischievous ghosts known as poltergeists. All Gengar does is haunt humans for its whole life, which is most likely for all eternity. Very mischievous. I like it. Let's be honest here, aside from missing number, Gengar was probably the scariest Pokemon from your childhood. While the original Red and Blue weren't my very first Pokemon game, I did play the shit out of Silver when I was about 8. Of course, my young mind wasn't aware of the mediocre mechanics at the time, but I still have very fond memories of it. Probably the most important memory that I have with it is Gengar himself. When I first saw Gengar, I nearly crapped myself. This was when I reached Morty and Mahogany Town for the first time. Morty's Gengar was the first true menacing thing I ever saw in a Pokemon game. So you'd imagine how surprised I was when I saw Gengar. Ugh, that stare of his used to give me nightmares. Like I mentioned earlier, I feel as if Gengar symbolizes Lavender Town itself. I'm not sure why, really. Whenever I revisit Lavender Town today, I always feel as if Gengar is watching me the whole time. In fact, I once had a nightmare in which Gengar posed as the nurse from the Pokemon Center and destroyed my Pokemon rather than heal them. I'm not making that up. Gengar creeped me out so much that he led me to become so interested with the supernatural aspect of life. In a nutshell, Gengar is a creepy childhood memory of mine in which I'll never forget. Blastoise is, by far, my favorite Generation 1 starter Pokemon, as well as my all-time favorite water type. The hell with Charizard, Venusaur's alright, but Blastoise is my main man. Now, just because this is the 3rd Generation 1 Pokemon in a row, don't go thinking that all the rest of them are as well. In fact, Blastoise is the last Gen 1 Pokemon you're going to see on here, as he is actually my favorite Generation 1 Pokemon. Knowing me, you'd think that Generation 1 Pokemon would have to be very special to be placed this high. Well, he is. I loved Blastoise from the day I saw him. Seriously, how can I begin to describe how awesome this thing is? First, let's start with his design. It's awesome. Blastoise is a giant aquatic turtle with water cannons tucked inside its very shell. That's as if Bowser decided to fuse himself together with Flood from Super Mario Sunshine and use them as if they were mortar cannons. How beastly is that? Blastoise, like any other starter, is very well balanced. Although he's more defensive than offensive, Blastoise has never failed me in the offensive department either. All around, Blastoise is the most defensive starter to date, even more so than Meganium and Empoleon. Blastoise's defense can reach a maximum of 328. Not too shabby, but Blastoise's greatest stat is special defense. Blastoise has the highest special defense of all starter Pokemon, which can reach a maximum of 339. Like I said, he's not too shabby in the slightest. I also find Blastoise's move pool to be pretty damn sweet, with moves like Skull Bash, Mirror Coat, Water Spout, Gyro Ball, Fake Out, and even Rapid Spin. Blastoise can learn a lot of moves unique among starter Pokemon. Not only that, but he's also able to learn my favorite move by level up, Flash Cannon. I guess those water cannons are more than meets the eye, huh? Speaking of that, Blastoise's water cannons are one of the most awesome features of any Pokemon, as well as the most famous. These water cannons are capable of firing jets of water so powerful that they are capable of punching holes through thick steel. To be honest, I was originally going to place Blastoise at a higher spot on this list, but then I realized that one of the main reasons I love Blastoise is because of nostalgia. Real quick, I want to tell you all a little story. When I first got Blue on Christmas of 2001, I chose Squirtle the second I saw him. For the next 3 months, I became fused with my Game Boy. I loved Squirtle so much that I used him and him only. By the time I reached Koga and Fuchsia City, my Blastoise, or Pumper as I like to call him, was level 71. Final verdict, Blastoise is one of the most memorable Pokemon of Generation 1. He's just so awesome. You can never go wrong with turtles and water cannons, especially if they're put together. Oh, hell yeah! Now we're really getting the top 10 going. Up next is the reptilian berserker of the forest, Sceptile. Sceptile is my favorite starter Pokemon ever. All of you who thought Blaziken was my favorite Hoenn starter are probably thinking, what? I thought Blaziken was your favorite.
Wrong!
Yeah, Blaziken's ridiculously awesome, but Sceptile is just... wow. Sure, being called a forest lizard may not sound so cool, but trust me, this is no ordinary lizard. Known as the king of the forest, Sceptile is without peer in jungle combat. Sceptile's secret to his incredible fighting skills is thanks to his extreme agility. Sceptile's base stat total is 530, the highest out of any grass starter. Just like Electrode, Sceptile has a surprising amount of speed. Considering it's his greatest stat, Sceptile's speed is definitely one of the reasons why he's so deadly. Sceptile's speed can reach a maximum of 372, the fastest of all starter Pokemon, and the fastest of all non-legendary grass types. Of course, with great speed comes great power. Right behind that absurdly high speed stat, Sceptile greatly excels in special attack as well. Sceptile's special attack can reach a maximum of 339, making him very useful in the offensive department. Also, Sceptile's move pool is ridiculously good among grass starters. With his reptilian-like physique, Sceptile is able to learn a vast array of moves, with moves like Leaf Blade, Night Slash, Focus Blast, Bulldoze, Acrobatics, Crunch, Crush Claw, Dragon Pulse, Razor Wind, and even Hone Claws. Sceptile has the widest type coverage of any grass type, even outranking legendaries such as Celebi, Shaman, and Virizion. That is just plain ridiculous. Moving on to appearance, Sceptile just excels in visuals. First off, his tail looks like a giant pot leaf. You know what? Never mind what I said about Breloom. This is the stoner's best friend. Seriously, all you need to do is grab a leaf from that tail of his, and you'll be chilling with Palkia in no time. Oh, you having trouble lighting that blunt of yours? No problem. Just have Sceptile use Dragon Breath on it. Problem solved. Good God, what is it with me and drug jokes? Anyway, let's talk about those legendary arms of his. Just look at those Leaf Blades. Speaking of that, those blades on his wrists was how Leaf Blade became one of the best offensive grass-type attacks. When this move was first introduced in Gen 3, it was Sceptile's signature move. But once Gen 4 was introduced, Leaf Blade became more powerful and was no longer Sceptile's signature move. It does give him less credibility, but it's not a bad thing in the slightest. Lastly, just look at that stare. Sceptile is so badass that he can kill you with a single stare from those eyes.
Die!
In the anime, Sceptile was always a very calm and placid individual. You can usually find him chewing on a twig and keeping to himself. Now that's what you call a casual Pokemon. But don't underestimate him, or else he'll make like crack and fuck you up. The best word to describe Sceptile is a ninja. He always remains calm, he's fast as hell, and he will kick your ass before you can even blink. Ending result, Sceptile is both my favorite starter, as well as my favorite grass type ever. He's strong, swift, and overall a total beast altogether. At last we come across probably the most anticipated contender for the glorious type that is Dragon. It's the extremely powerful, sky-high master of the famous weather trio. It's Rayquaza. Okay, right from the start, you knew that Rayquaza would show up on the list somewhere. And god damn it, he deserves to be. Being the legendary mascot of Pokemon Emerald, Rayquaza is a Pokemon that gets even more awesome as the series continues onward. No matter what game he appears in, I am always happy to see him. Much like Lugia, many fans see Rayquaza as being overrated, but I honestly don't agree in the slightest. And since he's the final trio master on this list, I feel as if Rayquaza deserves every microgram of attention he gets. As you would expect from a legendary, Rayquaza has ridiculously high stats. And yes, that is beyond true. Rayquaza's base stat total is 680, with most of that being distributed into stupidly high offensive stats. Both of Rayquaza's attack stats are base 150. I know I've said this before, but that really is insane. His move pool allows him to have the most diverse move pool of any legendary dragon. To put it bluntly, he's quite possibly the strongest dragon type ever. That is saying something. Unlike most dragons, Rayquaza doesn't live in a cave or even at the bottom of the lake, except in Brawl. He lives in the very ozone layer of all places. Rayquaza is said to have lived for hundreds of millions of years in the ozone layer of Hoenn, where he mercilessly defends his territory from all intruders. Now doesn't that kick ass? Like his two legendary counterparts, Rayquaza is based upon Hebrew mythology. Just like Groudon was based on Behemoth and Kyogre based upon Leviathan, Rayquaza is based upon the legendary Ziz, the unconquerable primal master of the sky. Being a huge green dragon capable of negating weather effects, it's quite apparent that Rayquaza has a signature ability, Airlock. Airlock negates all weather effects on the battlefield. That's especially helpful if your opponent has a weather team. I should also mention that Rayquaza has the coolest Pokemon name I've ever heard. Rayquaza. Just saying it makes you feel awesome. Final verdict, Rayquaza is hands down my favorite dragon type, as well as my favorite flying type. With every new appearance Rayquaza gets, the more his popularity rises, which I find to be a very good thing, as I feel that everyone should at least like or respect Rayquaza. He is by far the definitive dragon type in the series, at least from my perspective that is. But even though Rayquaza is awesome beyond belief, he is still only my second favorite Gen 3 Pokemon. What, you thought Rayquaza was my favorite Gen 3 Pokemon? Well, I hate to break it to you, but he's not. This is. Sweet Lord, I love this Pokemon. Deoxys is easily the most amazing Gen 3 Pokemon I've ever seen. Since the release of my top 10 aliens in video games list, I'm sure that all of you are getting at the fact that I love Deoxys. Well, no shit! But can you really blame me? Deoxys is just so intriguingly epic. Born from an alien viral mutation, Deoxys is hands down the definitive alien in the Pokemon series, and he does a damn good job at it. With his alien-like genetic makeup, Deoxys is a Pokemon capable of changing into numerous forms and even regenerate its body if blown away by a powerful foe. That is sick! Speaking of the forms, that is obviously a topic that must be discussed. Deoxys has a total of 4 forms, and unlike most legendary form differences, Deoxys' stats are drastically altered with every form he changes into. The various forms that Deoxys shapes into result in the most powerful stats in Pokemon history. Attack form Deoxys is the ultimate sweeper, with both of his offensive stats reaching a maximum of 504, trumping both Mewtwo and Rampardos. While attack form Deoxys has the lowest defenses of any Pokemon, it's very, very, very fast. So make sure that you utilize his sweeping skills and don't try anything too reckless. Speed form Deoxys, with the exception of Sandrush Excadrill, is the fastest Pokemon ever. Once again, its speed stat reaching a maximum of 504. Speed form trumps even Ninjask, Excelgor, and even Electrode in terms of speed. Good lord. Defense form Deoxys outclasses even Lugia when it comes to defenses. In fact, defense form Deoxys has the highest defense and special defense of any psychic type. This thing rivals even Shuckle. That is an achievement. Strangely enough, it's actually the most balanced of all of Deoxys' forms. Normal form Deoxys is supposed to be the most balanced out of the forms, but it's quite obvious that defense form is. There's also a very funny thing to note about its forms: defense, normal, attack, and speed. In that order, it spells DNAs. Clever Game Freak is clever. Let's segue into its concept. Deoxys is based upon the medium of genetic code in many cellular organisms, deoxyribonucleic acid, otherwise known as DNA. This is a very unique concept. Unlike most legendaries, Deoxys is not based upon mythological creatures or urban legends. Instead, Game Freak decided to take a trip into biological elements and make him based on our very own genetic compounds, and merge that with the literal representation of aliens and the visual representations of a DNA double helix. That is beyond genius. Deoxys is amazing. With its multiple forms, ridiculous stats, ingenious